Hello and welcome to Smaulgld's. In case you missed it, top gold and silver stories for the weekend at September 3rd, 2017. Report: China planning gold-backed Chinese yuan as payment for oil. Nikkei Asian Review claims China is preparing a gold-backed yuan oil payment proposal. Hurricane Harvey swamps Houston. World War II bomb to be detonated near German Bundesbank where the nation's gold is held. And gold and silver posted strong gains during the week, and cryptos also soared as Bitcoin reached $5,000 per coin before pulling back, and Litecoin closed in on $100 per coin before also pulling back. We're not going to cover Hurricane Harvey. That is a massive story of human proportions, of economic proportions. I'm just noting that it did indeed happen, just for the record, but that is a very big and developing story. Now, let's talk about this Asian Review story. The report is, this is the headline: China sees new world order with oil benchmark backed by gold. Yuan denominated contract would let exporters circumvent the US dollar. Now, first of all, that assumes that that's what the exporters wish to do. For example, Saudi Arabia. Now, they may wish to do that if China puts pressure on them and says, look, we don't want to pay in dollars, we want to pay in yuan, and the exporter says, oh, but I don't want yuan because what good is the yuan? And China says, well, it's backed by gold. That makes it attractive. But before we get into that, we had spoken about, back in April, there was a report that Russia and China were supposedly working on a gold payment system. Now, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of talk about this. But this particular story comes out and says, this is how the story reads, and I'll give you, there's a link below. The report notes China is expected to launch a crude oil futures contract priced in yuan and convertible into gold. Okay, expected by whom and when? So the first thing we have to consider here is, before we get into the analysis, assuming that the story is properly sourced and will indeed happen, is how can they say it's expected and don't say by whom and what their source is? Then they say, of course, assuming that you accept what they're reporting is going to happen, analysts say it could be a game changer. So we're going to analyze both points. Let's just assume it is going to happen. Now let's look at whether it would be a game changer. Remember, a gold payment system is different than government backing its currency by gold. Under a pure gold payment system, the seller of goods accepts only goods as payment. So, Saudi Arabia says, you want my oil? Send me the gold. Russia says, you want my vodka? Send me the gold. United States says, you want our cotton goods? Send us gold. That is a gold payment system. What they're saying here is different. It's a gold payments proposal system. This is saying that China wants to pay for its oil not in dollars but in yuan. And in order to make the payments more attractive, they'll convert that yuan into gold. So the first question you have to ask is, will China actually create and propose such a payment system? We haven't heard anything other than from the Nikkei Asian Review. They don't say where they got this idea from. We've been hearing about gold payment systems for a long time. Now, let's assume that they are going to do this. It raises a number of issues that are very important if you're following the gold market. Well, Saudi Arabia has a deal with the United States in order for it to receive protection and to be able to buy military hardware, that they will accept only dollars and price their oil only in dollars. So, would Saudi Arabia accept the new Chinese yuan convertible to gold payment? Well, first of all, even if Saudi Arabia is required under the petrodollar arrangements to price its oil in dollars and only take dollars, but would Saudi Arabia even want to take yuan? Well, China has an answer for that. We'll back it by gold, and this way you don't You get a better deal. Okay. But would China be as bold as to suggest to Saudi Arabia to even make the request or require that they're only going to pay in yuan and not dollars? That's a big stretch. That China would go to Saudi Arabia knowing about the petrodollar arrangement and say, well, you know, forget that. Why don't you take our yuan because that's what we want to pay? Now, China does have some bargaining power because China is now a larger customer for oil exports with Saudi Arabia than the United States is. So Saudi Arabia may decide, well, maybe we can get a similar yuan, petro yuan arrangement. Maybe China protects us. Maybe China sends us its missiles or its aircraft, whatever they need to protect themselves. And we accept this yuan. Now, that would be a big deal. That's possible. But it would take a very bold China to make that request, or even more, to make it a requirement. We're only going to pay you in yuan. Okay. Now, forget Saudi Arabia. Assuming Saudi Arabia stays with the U.S. and China doesn't approach them, doesn't require them, and China continues to buy oil. But let's go outside of Saudi Arabia and countries that would be much more likely to go along with this because no skin off their nose. So, for example, Russia. Russia, why do they need to trade their oil to China for dollars? Clearly, and we've reported on this in the past, it makes all the sense in the world for countries like Russia and Iran to take the Chinese yuan. Maybe not, because maybe the dollar is a better international hold than the yuan, but once you back it by gold and it's convertible into gold, it makes all the sense in the world for Russia and Iran to accept that. Also, however, if they really were interested in getting away from the dollar, they would just tell China pay us in gold in the first place. So it seems like, according to this report, China is taking the bull by the horns and saying, look, we'll pay you in yuan. If you got problems with yuan, we'll back it by gold. So let's say the sellers of oil decide that they wish to take China up on this offer, assuming that China actually does make this offer. How often would the sellers of oil actually convert the yuan into gold? And how much gold would be drained from China in doing this? Remember, this is a one-way street. China just loses gold as they buy oil. If countries selling it to them convert all the yuan into gold, that would mean that China only is a net seller of gold because they're not demanding payment in gold for their exports. They're basically saying, we'll just in effect pay you in gold for your oil. So what impact would that have on gold demand internationally? Now remember, the countries wouldn't need gold to trade. It would be China that would have the need to have gold to back its trades. So let's say they get this off the ground and they're a little surprised that basically anytime they buy oil for yuan, the sellers immediately and 100% of the time convert their yuan into gold. Well, no matter how much gold you think China has, forget the People's Bank of China because that's not where the bulk of the gold is, they would eventually run out of gold. So that's kind of what was happening to the United States. When they had the dollar backed by gold, central banks would bring their dollars. The U.S. was running a trade deficit. They weren't requiring gold payments, so they were just acting as the world's gold broker. China would be doing the same. And why wouldn't? It's a great deal. Why wouldn't you sell your oil, take the yuan, flip it immediately into gold? Gold probably has bigger upside than the yuan or any currency over time. So the question is, what would happen to the demand for gold? Well, it would seem China would have to continue to be in the market to get more gold to back its yuan for purposes of its oil payments. So I don't really see this would be a huge impact on the gold market other than it would disperse the gold that China has to its trading partners. And at some point, China would have to make a decision. Is it 100% convertible? Are they going to do this ad infinitum? or eventually are they just going to close the gold window and say, look, just take yuan for your oil? Now, a major impact would be if a country, rather than making a proposal to pay in gold, actually required gold as payment for its goods. So that I think is a big difference here. China is proposing to pay in partial gold, and I think they're hoping that they'll take the yuan and not actually convert it. They'll be satisfied that, hey, the yuan that we purchased, is as good as gold because it's convertible. But as we saw with the Bretton Woods Agreement in the United States, countries smarten up pretty quickly and they say, no, the yuan or the dollar is not as good as gold because they can close the gold window. So we might as well get the gold while they are offering it. Okay, let's get to the rest of the stories during the week. Let me have your thoughts on this. I think this story, I think there's a bit of, I actually think the story has got a 50-50 chance of being totally false and spurious because it's not sourced. It doesn't mention where it comes from. And we hear of this from time to time. However, I do say it does make sense. There's no reason why China wouldn't propose. It's not to Saudi Arabia, but throughout the BRICS countries and other nations, why not say, hey, let us pay in yuan. And if you don't like that, how about we back it with gold? Let me have your thoughts below on that one. All right, so let's go to gold and silver. Gold closed up. It was a good week, 2.6%. It closed up to $13.24. It finally firmly closed above $1,300. Silver also closed up, but even more, 3.8%, up to $17.69. The gold-silver ratio finally cracked below 75 to 1. It closed at 74.82 to 1. You can see that there on the chart. By the way, if you like these reports, please consider donating to Smaulgld via PayPal, Bitcoin, Litecoin at the links below, or becoming a Smaulgld patron. Let's look at some of the quick tweets for the week. I just found this amusing. So, The Guardian sets up a non-profit to support its journalism. A lot of these mainstream media outlets believe that they have some type of higher level of journalism than perhaps the alternative media, and I don't think they do. And so they're asking people to pay, which means the free market isn't willing to pay. So they're setting up a nonprofit to support its journalism. Well, here's a case in point. The same day, this is what the Guardian puts out as journalism. My younger partner wants 5-hour sex sessions and I can't keep up. So now they're going to go and ask for donations so they can continue this type of journalism. Nice. Gold and Bitcoin don't pay dividends. I mention this here because one thing about gold is the mainstream media and a lot of detractors of gold always trash gold and say, look, it doesn't pay dividends. Like they're telling you something you don't know. Gold is inert. It's not supposed to pay dividends. But they never say Bitcoin doesn't pay dividends. They just seem to be giving the cryptocurrencies, they seem to be embracing them a lot more than they ever did gold or silver, for whatever that's worth. Now, look at this. Bitcoin versus other bubbles. Later in the week, I'm going to have another post coming out about whether Bitcoin and Litecoin are in bubbles. I've already done one. You'll see that one below. You can check that out. But I have a new way of comparing Bitcoin's rise to other bubbles and other non-bubbles. But you can see here, you could say this time is different. Well, it is in a sense, because that is different. That is much different. There's something different there. And as I'll show later in the week, Bitcoin and Litecoin are a bit of a hybrid. You can't really use other stock comparisons, and I'll tell you what those comparisons are in a post later this week. Make sure you subscribe to Smaulgld to get that when it comes out. All right, here's some of the real stories. I find that it looks like Antifa is getting part of the blame now after Trump tried to blame them after Charlottesville. It looks like Nancy Pelosi has denounced them. I think even Paul Ryan has denounced them. And I believe that Washington Post put out a story saying that they attacked peaceful right-wing demonstrators. So the blame on both sides or all sides narrative is starting to be accepted. It seems that's what it was, that you did have blame on both sides. Excuse me. Now, there were a lot in the cryptocurrencies this week. Here's a couple. China's regulators preparing new rules for digital coin offerings. Remember to distinguish digital coin offerings from digital currencies. I did a blog post on that and a YouTube on that. You could check that out. There is a significant difference. Vietnam preparing to legally recognize Bitcoin. Here's an interesting one. Russia credit agency to issue the first global ratings in 2018. So now you have Russia expanding its domain. You know, usually the credit agencies are mostly US, but now Russia's going to issue one as well. Corruption still a problem 10 months after India's cash ban? Of course, that was a one-off when India demonetized its bills. They're looking to flush out corruption, but now what they're saying is people are using things other than cash to pay bribes like luxury trips or real estate. So it's not just cash, and I'm sure they're using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to do the same. So going after cash, it really didn't make much sense. I still don't know. They're trying to basically go into the cashless society. By doing that, they use corruption as the impetus to get it done. Wholesale inventories, again, the economic data, not worth going through. You can read through all of them. As the data comes out, I post it up here on Smaulgld, but the economy is neither expanding significantly or contracting significantly. U.S. Mint sales again were atrocious. Later in the week, we will have reports on U.S. Mint gold sales in the form of gold eagles, gold buffaloes. We'll have U.S. Mint silver sales, Perth Mint silver sales, Perth Mint gold sales. We'll also do the Kazakhstan gold reserves. Some interesting news there. The Shanghai Gold Exchange withdraws for the month of August. People's Bank of China, their August gold reserves, maybe they added, maybe they didn't. They haven't added since October. We've got another update on the cashless society. We've got something on the 13 states who have enacted legal tender laws for gold and silver and eliminated taxes. We'll also have the Canadian Mint gold and silver updates on the sales for the first half of the year. So please, there'll be a lot of blog posts and a lot of YouTubes during the week. I will not send out a email on each blog post. We'll do a catch-up email at the end of the week. So please subscribe to Smaulgld and to this YouTube channel. And by the way, also VidMe and BitChute. Smaulgld is now on those. And please, I need some people to follow me on VidMe so I can get verified on VidMe, so I can put out longer than 30-minute YouTubes, and also importantly to get monetized on VidMe. Also, if you're interested in buying gold or silver, please consider checking out the links. BGSE, Golden Eagle Coin, SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange. Smaulgld gets a small commission. It's not an investment advice to buy gold or silver, but if you're interested, please consider comparing pricing and shipping there. And if you're interested, by the way, this is what we're looking at right here. The gold and silver sales are atrocious at the U.S. Mint. So I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I would never buy cryptos, and I only buy gold and silver." Well, it doesn't. Forget what's happening at Smaulgld's site, because I basically in the last 3 months have only made about one sale per month, when the site used to generate a few a week. So clearly there is a move away from, at least in the U.S. and according to the U.S. Mint numbers, away from purchases of silver and gold, and especially gold. U.S. Mint sold just 6,500 and I think 3,000 gold buffaloes and 6,500 American gold eagles. That's basically nothing. And the U.S. Mint barely cracked 1 million silver eagle sales. So the U.S. Mint definitely selling fewer gold and less gold and silver than in recent years. And they're really at a 10, 11, 12-year low. Here's explaining the rise of Bitcoin and Litecoin versus gold. You want to check that out. SEC warned again on ICOs. You click on that link, you can see what their issues are. Russia plans to ban cryptocurrency sales, but to ordinary people. If you're an accredited investor, not only can you buy them, they're going to make them allow you to buy them on the Moscow Stock Exchange. Unbelievable. Bank of Mexico rejects virtual currency as legal classification for Bitcoin. And I think we've got a couple more stories here. Richest gold temple in India has deposited some of its gold with the SBI. Here's one that's really interesting. Click on this link. CNBC absolutely just pumped Litecoin. They didn't say anything about cryptocurrencies being any of the things you could say bad about cryptocurrencies. They just mentioned why it's a wonderful thing, why it's going up, and they even have a video on there. And again, you never ever see that about gold. It looked like a promo piece for Litecoin. Click on that link. It's on the website, smaulgld.com. There's a link below to this blog post. Gold is less of a safe haven because of cryptos. This is basically Muhammad L, whatever his name is, from PIMCO, massive, largest fund in the world. And here he is saying that gold is less of a safe haven because of Bitcoin. So you definitely see mainstream people with a lot of money, mainstream media, jumping on the crypto bandwagon, which is for one reason I believe that they're going to go higher, just because of the limited amount of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and so on, and the tremendous interest that they're garnering. And they really aren't getting the negative press. No one's saying these are speculative. There are people saying it, but not in the mainstream media. There are people who are saying that, like Muhammad El let me tell you what his name is. I shouldn't butcher his name, but they're actually saying not only are they speculative assets worthy of taking a look at, the guy is saying basically that it's a safe haven. That's a pretty strong endorsement for Bitcoin, at least. Jobs number was bad, but they upped the GDP revision for the second quarter. Here's why I say Bitcoin and the bubble is in ICOs, not Bitcoin and Litecoin. A lot of it's based on there's just so much demand for Bitcoin and Litecoin. I don't mean demand like everyone in the world wants it, or there's like 20%, 30% of funds want to buy in, but you don't need that much. You don't need full participation in the financial markets or individuals that are interested in Bitcoin or Litecoin for them to go up. And it seems that interest is increasing. And as I say, the amount that's available to sell is not. And the way they're structured won't. And okay, so here's your cryptocurrency. 6 big banks join blockchain digital cash settlement project. And here is your link for China sees new world order with oil benchmark backed by Yuan. That's the Asian Nikkei. That's the source of the story. Here's the Russia file story that's based off of the Nikkei story. Just a link there for you. And there's your payroll. And finally, the last story. Click on this link. Zero Hedge covered this. You know, Germany just repatriated the rest of its gold from France. It now has more than half of its gold in Germany, and apparently it's all in Frankfurt. And they found a big bomb, a World War II bomb they're going to defuse, and they're not quite sure that they're going to be able to do it without some potential danger, so they're evacuating the area. What's interesting about that is that the gold vault, or $70 billion worth of gold, is 600 meters away from where they're going to detonate this bomb or try to de-detonate the bomb. So interesting there. Potential for Germany to lose some of that gold by blowing it up. The guy's name is Muhammad A. El Arian. Apologize to Mr. El Arian for not pronouncing or even knowing his name, but he is the guy that is in charge of, or was in charge of PIMCO. He took over from, there was some kind of internal debate between the two of them. The guy used to run it. But in any event, the point is he's a big deal. He's not just some crypto guy in a basement jumping up and down and saying all wonderful things about Bitcoin. He basically threw it out there that it's an alternative asset that people view as a safe haven. Thanks for listening, and remember, next week's a busy week, so please remember to check in. Thank you very much.